Okay, picking up where we left off last night. We got the top piece, that little fabric protector welded in. We've got our temporary rods strung, and I don't think I'm going to have to run any additional springs. I mean, it's got a lot of pop right there. Now, I've got the handle, and by the way, the handle, that little wooden form that we built to curve that thing around, worked out perfectly. I think that's where we ran out of tape last night. Anyway, I've got the door handle open as far as it'll go. If you go any further, well, a little bit further, and then everything will pop around, or try to pop around. So we're going to weld in a little stop right here, and this just happens to be a nail. It's pretty hard. If they can stand up to the pounding of a hammer, it'll stand up to stopping our bell crank from going over center. Now this is it's 5/32 drill bit. So we're going to drill a hole through the faceplate just so that this can rest into. We'll push it in flush and weld it on the other side, and then put a little tack on this side, and that will serve as our stop, because we certainly don't want that thing going over center. Alright, let's see. We want everything to look about halfway square and all that kind of baloney. We're just going to get started right here, and then release the bell crank. Release that bell crank so that we don't grind a divot into our bell crank there. And then of course we'll fit this and weld it in, and we'll be in good shape. Let's see how that does. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Very nice, very attractive. We'll clean up the flashing that the drill bit left and blow it out and weld that baby. Okay. Right there. Right here is our little stop that we just welded in. We've got our temporary pull rods. Actually, it's 1/16 welding rod. That isn't going to be the final rod. We're going to put in stainless. But we've got them installed. We've got everything set up. Our stop. See? Stops both ways. Back here, it stops it from going any further around, and right there, it stops it from going over center. So we're in excellent shape right there. The handle is working perfectly. The springs are they're exactly what I want. They feel good. Okay, now one of the last things we do before we take it to the airport and determine how far down our channel is going to be. One of the last things we're going to do is, of course, we're going to cut that out right there, but we have got to determine on both ends, right there on the locking pins, we've got to determine how much we're going to cut off. And I want a lot of that rod to go into the fuselage holes for just absolute security. So we take it all the way to the stop, and of course right there is where we're going to cut it off. And then from right there we can see, doggone, we've got 1.25 inches or a little more of pin sticking out. Now we're going to cut that off with the Dremel. We're going to tie this shut, take the Dremel cut-off wheel and cut it right there on both ends, and then release it, and I'm going to grind that to a fairly sharp point, not a blunt edge like most Cubs have. I'm going to have it a fairly sharp point so that if it was off center a little bit, it can still pick that hole and slide it right in. Cub doors are notorious for being sloppy and just an aggravation to use. So hopefully what we're doing here is making a door that's going to stand up to abuse and keep on a ticking. Now there's our little slot that we cut for the screwdriver access. You can, from the outside, you can close the door and lock it into place. And just to demonstrate, take a screwdriver and there we go. So we're in good shape. And that little metal addition that we put in there, it's a little more weight, but it's going to help the fabric survive screwdriver punches. Alright, I've carefully ground the point on both ends. Just going to polish it up with a little 320. No rough edges that could catch in the bushing as it opens. See how they do. Perfect. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cut that out. It's a trip to the airport. Well, we just removed this section, just cut it out with the Dremel tool with a cut-off blade. It zips right through it. Go get the heavier blades at Home Depot or Lowe's. If you buy a Dremel tool set, the cut-off blades that come with it are paper thin, and they're pretty much no good for nothing. They break and they shatter and they fly everywhere. Get the heavier cut-off blades, and you'll save yourself a lot of aggravation. I'm just going to clean up the edges a little bit, and then it's off to the airport we go. This is the one we're putting the door on. Here's a little Fairchild 24, Ranger powered, on loan from a guy who lives in Seattle, Washington, airline pilot. We got ignition problems right now, but that thing is a load of fun to fly. Good flying airplane. But this is too. That little Cub is an excellent airplane. Those bungee covers is one of my modifications. You'll recall in one of my tapes before this that was a project I was working on. They have turned out to be really excellent. And they make the airplane look good too, look more like a Super Cub. And the front seat was the first project I did on this airplane. The guy that built it he built it out of kits from Wag Aero. And that was a PA-18 seat, and he flew it from the front seat. Well, anyway, you couldn't get your feet down towards the rudder pedals. It's really tight. So I took the seat and tore it completely apart and made it a standard J3 seat. And I don't know if we can see or not, but now there's ample foot room for your rudder pedals and solo from the rear. And I redid the trim tab. I don't think we can see it from here. The trim tab control. Tore it all apart, and of course the tail feathers, they were standard J3 type tail feathers, and I took them off and made them into PA-18 like tail feathers with the aerodynamic balance. And there's the left side of the new elevators and horizontal stabilizer. You can see the aerodynamic balance and the lengthened trim tab and the modified Bowden cable push-pull system. Now everything works good on that thing. I think I've got tape on converting that elevator and stabilizer and covering. Just like it had eyes. Okay, the next thing I'm going to need to do is take it out and put the little screws in the hinges and see where we're at on that clearing the struts problem. Okay, I'm trying to get the hinges screwed in. may or may not go back with a different hinge. I think those are welded in, so I may be stuck with them. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Man, that's not going to take much at all. Shoot, that isn't going to take much. Not much at all. Let's see if it lines up here. Well, it's fitting, kind of. Still going to have to do some massaging. I'll go get that thing welded and bring it back out here tomorrow and massage on it some more. Cub doors are notorious for being pieces of junk. Well, let's see if we can get in it and maybe make it work. I'm going to have to grind that some. That's solid now. That's not going to be flying off. Oh, I should have gone flying today. Well, as we saw yesterday, the deadgum door still doesn't fit. It never has fit right. It was always tight and a hassle to get in and out. I thought maybe I could heat and move the tubes back, this one and that one. They're the ones really binding. And that one on the back side, I'm going to have to move this back about 1/8 of an inch. I can settle for that and just fight the door from now on, or cut this tube out and the one in the rear and move them back. As we noticed yesterday when I was measuring, this front one, to make it fit right, would go 2 popsicles back. That's about 1/8 of an inch. That's what I was using for measurement. And then at the bottom, 1/16 of an inch. So I've got it jigged up. I've got this block set up in there. It's jigged up. It's ready to go. So when I cut this out, I can bend this tang back a little bit after I clean it up, and then fit that tube right against the back block right there, and that'll be pretty much exactly where I need to be So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut that tube out right now and then put new tubes in. Should have built a new door. Believe me, we should have built a new door. Okay, I cut the old piece out off camera. Dadgum filthy ragged piece of junk. Whoever built this door did not do a good job. Well, I'll tell you what happened. Leroy Knight, the man that built the airplane, he built it from kits from Wag Arab. And of course he got a fuselage and he ordered the door, and the door really didn't fit because doors have to be custom fit to each individual fuselage. But anyway, what he did was he thought, oh, I'll just, or whatever, I'm not sure what he thought. The poor man's dead now. And, he did probably what I would have done, years ago, starting out, and just, make do. So anyway, I cut the old filthy ragged piece of junk out and welded in a new piece. I heated this and moved it back just a little bit. Got a real good solid weld around the bottom. I was scared to death I was going to lose the temper in those springs. So I really had rags everywhere and pouring water on it. And of course that's not good for a weld. It might produce what they call a crystallized weld. But in this case, this door isn't bearing any load. It's in there good. So, and the springs didn't lose their temper, and thank the Lord for that. Now we've got to do it on the other end, but we've got more of a problem there. As we can see, the whole door is jigged up tight. I don't want the thing moving. In reality, with all the time we've spent on this dadgum thing, we should have built a brand new door. It would have been much more, it would have looked a lot better. But anyway, hindsight is 20/20. Now I got to cut that tube out right there. And I've got to cut, because this is hitting the fuselage door post actually. So once the tube is out, I have got to cut that out. Now that has got my bushing welded in it. And we're going to have to move it back 1/16 of an inch and get it tack welded 4 corners. And I am really sweating those springs. Okay, the first thing I've got to do before I cut that tube out is just like I did on the other one, I've got to make a jig for this end that will clamp onto the frame and hold everything in shape. Let's see, I'm going to cut that off there, get it a little angle right there. Okay, anyway, jig building 101. Alright, yesterday we hammered that tube back, as we recall, and it got to where it was fitting. So that's about where I'm going to put it. I'm going to bring it back maybe 1/16 of an inch just to make sure. I'm going to nail that together right there. It'd be nice to have a brad gun, but I don't. So got everything else in the world but a brad gun and a Bridgeport mill and a lathe. Okay, I've run my lines there and there, out there, here and here. I'm going to connect the dots so I'll know where to throw a nail. I don't want nails sticking up everywhere. I'm only going to run 3 nails in here, just enough to clamp that new tube onto and hold it in place until I can get it tack welded in. Come on, Quit giving me problems. This door has been a nightmare. When I get done with it, it's either going to fit or I'm going to throw it in the dumpster and build a new one. Okay, there we go. That's going to fit. Sit on top of that popsicle stick right there. I'm going to bring it in 1/16 of an inch. Just for good measure. One popsicle width. Okay, that still didn't give me enough room to get in there and cut. Some of my meal. I have to cut some more off right there so I can get up in there and grind. Okay, I don't have anywhere to clamp back here, so I'm going to have to, let's see what I can do. Maybe I can run a nail in there. Let's hope that will hold. Another one down on the bottom. But I screwed myself, really. In the very beginning I thought, well, maybe I ought to just build it new. And then I thought, oh man, that's going to take too long. And so as you can see, I should have built a new one. I'm going to have to shim the back of that with a popsicle molus. Maybe that'll help. See, I'm not going to outsmart the old man. Not going to outsmart, boy, that has ripped. I'm going to have to maybe get that out, get that bushing out, weld it up. A little tang there has cracked. So maybe it's time to put a new little tang in there. I'll get that out, get the bushing out, and maybe weld that up or maybe put a tang in there. We'll see. It's time to cut it out and I'll do all that off camera. As we can see, we've got a pretty good mess going here. One little edge down there I couldn't get to with the little die grinder. Look at that piece of junk. Now, got to clean that up. Ruderinsky. Got to take off about another 1/16 of an inch there. You're going to have to really wet that baby down and make sure it doesn't ruin our springs. Okay, that's where it's going to go. Got to get the bushing fitted. This is worrying me. Now what I'm fixing to do here is put the rags everywhere, and then back here on the bottom tang, I'm going to put a substantial weld right there. Let everything cool back off. And that's all the welding I'm going to do down there. I'm just going to make sure that the dead gum tube will not let go. Let everything cool off, pour water on it, see where we are. I need about a 60 by 60 hanger to set up shop. Had a pretty good shop when I was out at Spinks. And that one hanger we had, man, that was pretty much ideal. pretty hair-raising stuff. It'll kind of give you a nervous breakdown. That's one heck of a substantial weld.
Yeah, I don't like gun happening.
And in this case, you have to let that soak for a while and see how everything came out. Still got to tack there and there in 4 places. I've got to get tacks to hold that baby in. They've got to be good tacks too. Well, as we can see, that worked out fine. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. There, 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 and there. Alright, here we go. Gotta do this fast.